Gamers, let's talk about W engines in Zenless Zone Zero as well as Bangboos, what they are and how to get them. So jumping right into things, first I want to talk about W engines, or basically your weapons in Zenless Zone Zero. How do you actually get these? As you might expect, W engines being the weapons in Zenless Zone Zero, they actually are obtained through their own gacha, or the weapon banner. There is also another way you can get them by crafting in-game through a shop called the Gadget Store, also known as the Box Galaxy. What this reminds me of is basically how we can craft our 4-star weapons in Genshin and Honkai Star Rail. But actually, that brings me to rarities. Your rarities in Zenless Zone Zero, and this does apply for characters as well, are A tier and S tier. That is your 4-star and 5-star respectively. There's also B tier, which is less than A tier, or you can think of those as your 3 stars. So when I say A tier, basically think your 4-star or your purples. If I say S tier, there's your 5-star, your golds. So how do W engines work? So if you watched my last video, we did talk about specialties, or in other words, not the attributes, not the elements of characters like fire, physical, ether, stuff like that. No, we're talking about the roles they fill, like attack, defense, support, anomaly, stun. The weapons, or the W engines, have that same thing and can only be used to their full effect on characters that correspond with that same specialty. So in the last video, I talked about Billy Kid. He's an attack character, and he can only use attack W engines to get the full effect out of them. So that is something you've got to keep in mind that works very similar to how Honkai Star Rail works with their path system. Now, every W engine does come with a base stat and also a stat that it ascends into. And upon enhancing the W engine, its base attack will increase. Now, modifying the W engine increases its base attack further and also increases that secondary stat. What does it mean by modifying? Modifying is when you take it from level 0 to level 20, and once you're 20 out of 20, you can't level it anymore until you modify it, as Zenless Zone Zero calls it, or in other words, ascend it, so that you can go to 20 out of 30 and be able to keep going. Then you ascend it again. Zenless Zone Zero calls that modifying. So you go to 20, then you modify, then you go to 30, then you modify, then you go to 40. Every time you modify, it's going to increase the main stat on the weapon. So let's just say the W engine has crit rate in its main stat. As you modify that, the crit rate on that W engine is going to increase, much like weapons from other games. We also have effects on the W engines that come with them. Now, the effects of W engines default at a 1-star level, which can be refined up to 4 more times, granting the W engine a level up to 5 stars. What that's just talking about is basically for Genshin refinements. When you have multiple copies of a weapon, you can merge them and the effect on the weapon becomes more powerful, increases the stat it's giving or whatever. So looking over here, this is Zenless Lab. I actually recommend looking it up. It's a very great resource. And you can just see here, there's a list of a lot of the W engines that are going to be available in the game. So I'm just going to sort by S tier because that's really the only ones we care about, at least for right now. Okay, so here I'm looking at Cannon Rotor. It's an S rank W engine. Now, this is an attack specialty W engine, meaning I can only use this on characters whose specialties are attack. So you can see here at level 1, it shows you the base attack, and then its base attack at level 60, which I'm going to assume that's the highest level as of right now, and its main stat is crit rate. So looking at the effect on the weapon, you can see right here, the Cannon Rotor overview. Increases crit rate by 8%, and attacks that land a critical hit on an enemy will inflict an additional 275% of attack as damage. This effect can trigger once every 8 seconds. That's the effect of the weapon. Sounds pretty good, especially for attack type characters. That's what W engines look like. Next, I want to talk about Bangboos, and this one's one of those things that's very unique to Zenless Zone Zero. In Zenless Zone Zero, if you didn't already know, you can only play as 3 characters, but there is a hidden 4th slot that's actually reserved for your Bangboo. Unlike your 3 main characters, you don't actively control the Bangboos. They simply idle on the battlefield, doing their own thing and casting their skills to assist you in combat. You don't really have to think, in practice at least, about what the Bangboos doing. You can think about which ones you're using, but you don't have to think about actually using them. It's all automatic. Similar to agents in the game, they come in the different rarities and come with their own unique set of skills. Of course, you have the B, A, and S tier rarities, which is like your 3, 4, and 5 stars, as we talked about earlier. And each Bangboo has a unique set of 3 skills divided between an active skill, a unique passive, and then also a common passive. What does that actually look like? I have filtered just by S tier Bangboos right here. I'm just going to take a look at the Rocket Boo. So Rocket Boo is an S rank Bangboo that you can obtain. And what do these guys do? They have their own little set of stats and whatnot. You can see his crit, all that good stuff. Bangboos have those 3 different skills that we briefly touched on. The first one is your active skill. So in the case of Rocket Boo, he's just going to mount a rocket that charges at the target. It's going to hit the target, deal some fire damage, and inflict a lot of fire anomaly. Now, if you don't know what that is, I do touch on all the different types of elemental anomalies in the last video, so do check that out. Now, on his second, this is basically just his passive. It just states that when there are at least 2 fire attribute characters in your squad, Bangboos chain attack inflicts 80% more anomaly buildup. So what I'm getting here is something that's similar to elemental resonance. In Genshin Impact, if you have 2 pyro characters in your team, you're going to get a buff to your attack. Likewise, in Zenless Zone Zero, because there's not something like that at least, there is this little thing through the Bangboos that it encourages you to use 2 of a same attribute or element, right? And it's the same way with some others that were like use 2 ice characters, 2 ether, stuff like that. And you can see how it gives you like 80% more buildup. It's almost double. So I can see that being a thing. And I'm actually excited to see how that turns out, because not that I like to be restricted, but I do like to have to put the puzzle together to kind of figure out what is the best performing thing. That's just what I like to do. So it does mention Bangboos chain attack inflicting 80% more anomaly buildup. That's what this last skill is. Now, not every Bangboo has this third. This is usually the chain attack. And in the case of Rocket Boo, it's basically the same thing as the active skill. But here's the difference. The active skill has a certain multiplier, but the chain attack is a lot more powerful. You can see the damage bonus is a lot higher, and the daze is significantly higher. Now, what is daze? Daze is basically a little meter under the opponent's health bars, and as you just deal damage, do attacks, and hit the enemies, you're going to build up that daze meter, and once that's full, they're going to become stunned. Now, the enemy at this point is helpless, can't do anything, and you're going to get a good big window to get in a lot of damage opportunity until he comes back up. During that stun period, if you do heavy attacks, you will trigger automatically chain attacks, which is just a type of attack that I'm not really going to go into right now, at least. When you do those chain attacks, at least for Bangboo, remember, because Bangboo's all automatic and we don't have to do anything about that, he will do this automatically, and it's going to be the same thing as his active skill. Once again, just multipliers a lot better, and you're going to inflict that fire anomaly in the case of Rocket Boo, or ice anomaly in the case of another. Now that we know about Bangboos, how do we actually obtain Bangboos? And this part might surprise you, because it surprised me. In Zenless Zone Zero, Bangboos are obtained through gacha. And as much as I hated that at first, now that I think about it, I'm not too worried about it, because they have their own currency and it doesn't seem like you can just outright buy it. Getting Bangboos in Zenless Zone Zero is done by pulling for them in the specific Bangboo banner. This banner requires a specific currency known as Bupon. This currency can only be obtained through specific modes in the game or events and cannot be bought with premium currency. In other words, can't be bought with Primogems or Stellar Jade, meaning that Bangboos might just be quite hard to obtain. You also see here the Bangboo banner works similar to the Honkai Star Rail weapon banner, where you have a 75% chance of winning the featured Bangboo on the banner. Whether these percent chances will remain the same is still uncertain, and it might be worth looking into, as not being able to efficiently farm for the Bupons might deter players from pulling on the banner, or having to wait for months to even get good ones. So it is something to think about, but I don't think it's something that's going to be like incredibly crippling if you don't have good pieces. They kind of are just there as the 4th character in the party. They have some cool attacks that kind of just happen passively. You don't really have to think about or press a button to do it. You just do your normal thing with your 3 characters, and the Bangboos will kind of just be there to support you. Well, that's everything I got so far on W engines and Bangboos at the most primitive level. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And if you like more gacha content in general, like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and even Withering Waves, do check out Gacha Interact, part of a channel that I co-host with my friend Vixen. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.